The idea of autonomous cars picking up people on demand or maybe in a shuttle route, that's been a dream of many for many years. Well, it's starting to come to fruition. We're here in Las Vegas. Andres, tell us what your company, Keolis, does and how it's part of this ecosystem that's developing.
Absolutely, Ken. We operate transportation systems for cities, so buses, trains, parking, taxis, paratransit, you name it, we operate it. And as you can imagine, autonomous vehicles, whether it's autonomous shuttles like the one that we are sitting in right now, or an autonomous taxi, are just a very nice augmentation of city transportation systems.
What was really neat about what we're sitting in is the fact that it's really right-sized to the application.
Yes, correct. The average bus carries about 10 passengers per hour, and if you look at this vehicle, it can carry 15, and so it's the right size. It also has the right speed, because the average bus drives at measly 11.5 miles per hour, and this vehicle drives significantly faster.
Now, one thing it's missing, it's a very important operational thing from a bus perspective, is where in the heck's the steering wheel?
I know, you don't need one, and that's the exciting part of it. And similarly, if you go into the autonomous cab, you don't see a driver, and that makes the economics of this type of vehicle substantially more interesting for us.
And I can imagine the fact that it's electric too, from a long-term perspective on operationally, that's got to be a big savings.
Absolutely. No. So electric vehicle is a must in this context, because if you see that those vehicles will drive some miles empty, especially if you're looking at the taxi side, and if you drive many miles empty, you obviously would pollute the air more, but an electric vehicle doesn't have that problem.
And it's very easy in terms of it charges, it finds that knows where to go to charge and that sort of thing, right? From an operational perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. This vehicle that we are driving in right now, or sitting in right now, is actually driving on fixed routes. So it's a determined route that it always will follow. Whereas the taxi is kind of on demand. So as you can call it like any taxi, it will get to where you are and will get you to where you want to be.
Now, your company in the U.S. is focused on this, but your parent company really sees the big picture in terms of transportation. Why don't you talk to that for a moment, because I think it puts things in context of how important this is.
Absolutely. Now, we are a subsidiary of SNCF. That's the very fast TGV trains that some of you may know in France. And we invest in companies like Hyperloop. We invested in Navia as one of the technology leaders in this space, into Moveit, into parking companies. So every mode of transportation that will come and augment traditional city transportation systems as we know them.
And it seems like you're kind of that operations layer between the technology and the companies that actually are operating the systems, right?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Ken, because many people are getting excited about the technology of the vehicle itself. But at the end of the day, when the rubber meets the road, it's really the operation that will create a lot of hiccups, because you need to make sure that the vehicles are in good operational standing, that the vehicles are where they need to be, that the vehicles are clean, that nobody can hack those vehicles. And all these things fall under the big umbrella of operations, and that's what we do at Keolis.
Who are you seeing the first interest from? Is it mostly public agencies, or are you seeing some private interest as well?
On both sides. So I would actually see private enterprises or campuses of universities or even communities that are designed around the idea of autonomous vehicles being the first larger deployments. But we also see a lot of interest of cities that are very progressive and want to see this technology in their cities.
Now, what about pushback from the fact that you don't need a driver? How does that play into this?
Interestingly, this hasn't come up yet, because I think we are still under the radar screen a little bit because those pilots are very small. But I also did a study where I looked at the economic impact of this type of transportation, and interestingly, given that it provides mobility at a lower cost point to more citizens that otherwise would never be able to go around or move around, it actually has a positive economic impact. Yes, we may lose some driver jobs, but we will create a lot more jobs through the fact that we get people access to education, to healthcare, to jobs that couldn't afford to drive a car.
That makes sense. You're actually expanding the pie by allowing transit where you wouldn't have it otherwise, right?
Absolutely, and it's also solving the first and last mile problem. So we expand the reach of kind of how can people get to the next bus stop, to the next train stop, or from the next bus and train stop to their work or destination point. And given an kind of a economic way to get people there, will add also to the ridership of public transit authorities.
Now, this is obviously still in the early stages, but I'm sure you're looking at things like ADA type compliance for accessibility, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Now, at the moment, this is a fringe use case, yeah, but definitely the compliance needs to be there.
From a future standpoint, one of the things we talked about was some of the neat things that can be done because you are essentially on an electric smartphone, right?
Yeah.
With wheels.
Yes, you are. You can kind of deliver services into these vehicles. You can, for instance, have augmented reality on windows that puts the vehicle into the context of where it is driving. You could show where kind of companies offer jobs on the window. Click here, get this QR code if you are interested. But also commercial use cases where you point people to whatever they can do at the next bus stop.
Excellent. And the other thing that I find interesting about this is just the way the seats are. They're facing each other, and it's not the impersonal, your front's looking at someone's back.
Yes, but obviously we will also have wireless connectivity in these vehicles. And if you go into a bus or into a train today, you will see all these people, particularly young people, that just are kind of engulfed in their mobile phones, but it makes you could actually play a game in here, yes.
Yeah, or at least have a conversation, a real conversation.
Yeah. a real conversation, yes.
Just like we've had, and I really appreciate catching up with you, and good luck with this.
Thank you very much, Chris.